Currency pairs and long-term strategy, a quiet path through volatility. Getting started without the noise. When I first stepped into trading, I didn't really understand the appeal of currency pairs. Stocks felt tangible, company names, industries, reports. Forex, in contrast, seemed abstract. But after months of trying out different asset classes, I came to see currencies in a different light. Not as speculation, but as a steady, strategic tool. I've been working with one broker for a while now. I won't pretend it's the only one I've tried, but it's the one I stayed with. TurfCP.com turned out to be far more stable and intuitive than some well-known platforms I tested in the early stages. While others offered bells and whistles, often more confusing than helpful, this one gave me a sense of clarity. And clarity, as I've learned, is underrated in trading. My opinion on Turf Capital Private has slowly formed over time. At first, I didn't expect much. But day by day, trade by trade, I started to notice how a well-structured platform changes your habits. You stop guessing, start planning, and most importantly, you stop rushing. Why currency pairs became my primary focus. What drew me into Forex wasn't the leverage or volatility, it was the control. Unlike many equities, which can gap overnight or react to unexpected internal news, major currency pairs like EUR, USD, or GBP, JPY tend to respond to macroeconomics. You can read central bank calendars, follow inflation data, and form a thesis, not just gamble. The broker I use now gives me access to a clean list of core pairs, without overloading the screen with exotic options I don't need. It may seem like a small thing, but in practice, it helped me focus. A review at Turf Capital Private might not praise flashy features, because that's not what it offers. What it offers is consistency, execution speed that stays the same whether it's 2 p.m. or 2 a.m., a platform that doesn't freeze during high volatility, and reliable spread behavior. That's what I've come to value after months of seeing how fast things can go wrong elsewhere. Technical features that actually matter. Early on, I didn't care much about platform performance. I figured most brokers are more or less the same. That assumption changed the first time an order didn't execute on a different platform during a scheduled ECB announcement. Since moving to TurfCP.com, I haven't had to worry about that. I've tested orders during US CPI releases, during Asian market opens, and at odd weekend hours. Execution remains smooth. There's also a level of transparency that I didn't find elsewhere. For example, I always know what the spread will be. It doesn't mysteriously widen when I hit confirm. That may sound like a given, but I've seen how unreliable this can be with other brokers. Even small tools, like trade history tracking, exportable reports, and clean visual stop-loss input, are done right here. And that's what makes trading feel more like a process than a gamble. Room to think, not pressure to act. Some platforms constantly push traders toward overactivity. You log in, and there's a pop-up. You close it, and there's a signal. You check your email, and there's a personal offer. I've had brokers call me with suggestions after I merely opened an account. Turf Capital Private does none of that. No calls, no emails asking me to deposit more, no forced leverage. I fund what I want, when I want, and open positions on my own terms. That space, the absence of noise, helped me become more disciplined. In fact, my trading frequency decreased, and that's a good thing. I now take longer to prepare my setups, do more backtesting, and risk less per trade. I started seeing gains, not because I acted more, but because I acted better. The platform didn't teach me that directly, but it gave me room to discover it on my own. Currency pairs as a strategic hedge. Beyond trading itself, I've come to use currency exposure as part of broader capital management. Living in Europe and dealing with multi-currency income streams, I've learned that Forex can also function as a financial hedge. Sometimes I use positions like USD CHF or EUR GBP not to profit, but to offset risks elsewhere in my personal finances. That's not a function you'd expect from a trading platform, but when your broker is reliable enough, you begin to use it in more flexible, non-obvious ways. This is part of why my opinion on Turf Capital Private evolved from neutral to quietly confident. It's not loud. It doesn't try to be. But the reliability of Turf Capital Private made it feel more like a long-term tool than a short-term bet. Currency pairs are often misunderstood, but over time I realized they're not about constant action. They're about steady precision. When the platform doesn't distract you, and the broker gives you space to grow, you start to see more than price charts. You begin to understand yourself as an investor, and that, in the long run, makes all the difference.